So the floor is now open. Ambassador Tine from Tuvalu, you have the floor. So.
Thank you, Chair. And I thank the presenters also for very quality presentation today. I'm the Tuvalu ambassador here in Brussels, and I would like to just raise some comments on the last presentation. I think from the morning session that there is a need for wider recognitions of seats, as we summed up, because of the inherent vulnerabilities of seats. And there is a coloration also, as earlier mentioned, because we are now looking at the new multi-annual framework, financing framework, with our EU partners, that they look at this, in the way they allocate resources and give a wider recognition of the specific needs of seats in relation to vulnerabilities, especially with climate change. I think the other issues I want to raise here, Chair, is the issues of capacity constraints in as far as seats, especially the very smaller populated seats who have climate change as an existential, have existential consequences. And I can relate that also to the fact that their absence, if you look at the adaptation board, the adaptation fund, the global adaptation fund, that these most vulnerable countries as well are lacking behind in terms of access to resources there for their adaptation process. So I really urge and got encouraged by the DevCo presentation on budget support, because it will include an element of predictability and also dependency in as far as these people are concerned, and especially when they have constraints in actually putting up project proposals. So the points I would like to urge is that budget support must be a new modality that should be included in the next multi-annual framework of the our EU partners, and also that intensification of the advocacy and workshopping of these, so that seats can be able to meet at the earliest requirements of the budget support, so that they can be streamlined into this kind of process. Lastly, I think there is also a greatest need for technical assistance in as far as these countries are concerned, especially in the processing of their proposals to get adaptation funding that are available throughout the globe. Thank you.
Madam Simon from the Jamaican Mission, you have the floor.
Thanks to the presenters for their very enlightening and, in some instances, very candid remarks. And I have learned quite a bit about my region and indeed my own country, Jamaica. So I thank them for the presentation, the presentations this morning. I have a question or a comment on the issue of technology transfer. We have noticed that this issue is a recurring theme in sustainable development outcome documents. And sometimes there's this impression that we're sort of trapped in a circular debate on it. And so it leads me to ask the question whether it is a real problem or if it is a perceived problem. I ask this question because I want to know whether we have identified the technology which is needed to address some of the challenges that we're having in the different sectors in our economies, and the existing technology, whether we have them domestically, how we can acquire them to respond to our problems that we're having in the various sectors, in our various, in the economy, in our economies. But I believe there is a real problem. Professor Reid earlier this morning mentioned that we shouldn't wait on FDIs to transform our economies, but we should look at indigenous knowledge and the role that indigenous technology can play in addressing some of our concerns regarding resilience. Madam Harvey mentioned earlier, I'll point to some examples of where indigenous knowledge is playing that role. But I believe that accumulated indigenous knowledge is not enough to make the kinds of transformation that is necessary in the agricultural, manufacturing, and even services sectors to build our resilience and to use these industries to promote economic growth. And so I wanted to find out a little bit more about the role of technology transfer. The example of Singapore was cited earlier as a success story, but Singapore has managed to attract FDI in research and development. Countries in Caribbean countries have not. So I think we have to look at the issue in a very broad way. Rather than cherry-picking the issues, we have to look at the totality and to see exactly what is possible for countries in our region. So I just wanted to get a sense as to where this issue of technology transfer is going, because we know that technology plays an important role in promoting innovation, and innovation plays a role in economic growth. So all three issues are linked, but technology transfer is not, we don't get the impression that this issue is being addressed seriously, and that is why I need to understand where exactly this issue is going. I'm sure it will feature again in the Rio Plus 20 document, but exactly how is it being operationalized? And as I said, is it a real or a perceived problem? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Simon, for those. We'll allow the presenters to respond to those.
I agree that there is need for wider recognition of the inherent vulnerability of SIDS, and that these should be taken into account by multilateral donors in terms of their budget support to SIDS and in terms of the technical assistance that they give to SIDS. Technology transfer is a real problem, and this is especially obvious in terms of the renewable energy sector. There is the SIDS dock project being implemented by AOSIS that seeks to address this issue, but it is a real problem. And in terms of giving priority to this, there should be the promotion of science and technology education in SIDS regions, and that came out in the MSI plus 5 review. So hopefully within the Rio plus 20 and probably Barbados plus 20, there should be concrete measures in terms of how to really promote this in SIDS regions. And of course, indigenous knowledge is of course important. Thank you.
And I invite Madam Mavi to react to the questions brought from Tuvalu and Jamaica, respectively.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Tuvalu and Jamaica. I'd like to address the issue of technology transfer and innovation and technology from the ICA perspective. ICA is a technical cooperation agency. We have an office in each of 34 member states in Latin America and the Caribbean. And innovation and technology is one of our 4 key strategic areas for technical assistance. In the intra-ACP program, I mentioned that ICA is going to be executing a major project. One of the components of the policy project is on innovation and technology. And we will be focusing on technology transfer and strengthening the institutional framework for technology transfer under that component. We also recently, last year, ICA established formal cooperation agreements with 4 major innovation and technology centers in Latin America. These being CIP in Peru, which is responsible for potato, CIMIT for corn and grains, CIAT in Colombia for root crops and tubers, and IFPRI. And through our association with these centers, we are launching major programs. Just last week in Argentina at the FAO meeting, ICA also signed a cooperation agreement for the Caribbean region, and this will be extended to the other regions, to look at joint collaboration between ICA and the FAO one of those aspects dealing with innovation and technology transfer. So we are on the ground working in innovation and technology transfer, and we certainly would like to expand our network of agencies to outside of the Latin America and the Caribbean region to include the ACP. We are already doing it under the intra-ACP program with the Pacific, but we certainly look forward to forming stronger bonds with all of you here in the room. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. And finally, Walter, could you kindly respond or give a response to Ambassador Tine from Tuvalu on the very, very peculiar questions he's raised in terms of climate financing, work on rich seats recognition, and future support in terms of budget support to the seats member states? You have the floor, sir.
Thank you for the questions, and in particular the question from the ambassador of Tuvalu. Certainly, I think that let's say the presentation I made illustrated already special attention for the SIDS, and you mentioned capacity constraints. We try to help with the capacity constraints through this support facility, which is available on demand. In fact, the support facility is now wider. There's more recently, specifically for the ACP countries, also a support facility. So it's important to make good use of that. In terms of budget support, and you in a sense, in the Commission, in DEFCO particularly, you have, of course, let's say, those that are really trying to promote and are the champion. So definitely in the multi-annual financial framework, it is there, and it will get due attention in the programming. The programming is now under preparation. It will get attention. At the same time, I would also, it's a little bit risky because it's not always easy, and I can illustrate the case of Guyana, where I told you that this support was actually designed to work to improve the mangrove forest, and it was budget support, but because there was another problem involving Guyana, that had nothing to do with the climate change, with the mangroves, whatever, or with disasters, there was a delay, and so the risk certainly of general budget support, which is linked to, well, certain monetary macroeconomic measures. So one should be careful also. So generally, it is of course the preferable tool, and I think that we will try it, but one should not lose sight of other possibilities. But it's always good that in these possibilities, let's say, the national procedures can be used, and that it doesn't have to be necessarily the EU procedures, not necessarily. I'm saying that when there is a partner involved, let's say a regional institution, I can give an example. This is not an island institution, but it's a mountain institution. In the case of Bhutan, they are using the procedures of a regional body. Now, that is also, I think, recommended in the case of Pacific states, and there are these institutions that can do it. The second question I'd like to briefly say on it, it's a very, in terms of development cooperation, technology transfer, let's say it's a very difficult issue. It's been there all the time, and it's never, there is no ideal response, there is no magic formula for it. The previous speaker already responded linking to the agricultural research system network, which is very important for development, and which has been receiving support all the time. But there are also other centers of excellence. I think the idea of centers of excellence, like I was mentioning this 5Cs institution in Belize, the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center, is a center of excellence. That's also a way to channel technology, but then technology transfer very much depends on educational system, how the vocational training is done, how the, let's say, education in the scientific, technological, engineering things is done. If a country does not pay attention for, let's say, an engineering profession, then how can technology be transferred? So, indeed, foreign direct investment is not the solution. It must be. It can sometimes also help, but it must be combined with a wider national strategy. Thank you.